So was Texas bought or stolen? Hold your horses, because the real reason the U.S. acquired Texas is a wilder ride than a stampede at the Houston Rodeo, from rebel cannons to pirate ships. Throw in a war that redrew North America's map. This is the saga of how Texas became American, and trust me, it's juicier than a plate of brisket at a San Antonio cook-off. So let's dive deep into this epic tale. Texas, the Lone Star State, a land of legends, rebellion, and raw ambition. You've heard the story. The United States bought Texas from Mexico for a cool $15 million, which is about $500 million today, which is still damn cheap considering the price of goods and inflation these days. Snagging a territory bigger than France in one of history's slickest deals. A tidy chapter in America's march toward manifest destiny, right? Wrong. This wasn't a real estate deal. It was a high-stakes geopolitical poker game, soaked in blood, betrayal, and a clash of cultures that still echoes today. Wait, let's quickly clear one thing up about this $15 million slick deal. They do say, never let the truth get in the way of a good story. However, this $15 million claim is slightly misleading. Historical records indicate Texas was not actually purchased. The $15 million payment is associated with the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, signed on February 2, 1848, which ended the Mexican-American War and ceded additional territories, California, Nevada, Utah, New Mexico, etc., to the U.S., not Texas itself. This distinction is crucial as it clarifies Texas's integration was a political and diplomatic process, not a financial transaction. Picture the United States without Texas. No cowboy hats, no oil rigs, no Whataburger at 2 a.m. It's unthinkable. Texas is America's second largest state, sprawling 268,596 square miles, bigger than Spain. With 31 million people, it's got more folks than Australia, and its $2.7 trillion economy, ranking 8th globally, outmuscles countries like Canada and Russia. But back in the 1840s, Texas was a rugged frontier, a chessboard for empires, caught between a hungry young America and a Mexico desperate to hold its ground. So why did the U.S. risk everything, war, division, even its soul, for Texas? Was it destiny or a calculated grab for power? Saddle up for a journey as we unravel this epic tale, layer by layer through fascinating geopolitics, American and Mexican history, and unbelievable facts that will make you see Texas in a whole new light. Let's rewind to the 1820s. Mexico, fresh off its 1821 independence from Spain, had a problem bigger than a longhorn's horns. Its northern province of Tejas was emptier than a ghost town saloon. With only a few thousand Mexicans and Tejanos, who were the local Spanish-speaking residents, Mexico needed boots on the ground to secure the region from Comanche raids and foreign eyes. Enter the empresarios like Stephen F. Austin, who lured American settlers with dirt-cheap land. The catch? They had to become Mexican citizens, learn Spanish, and here's the spicy bit. They had to ditch slavery too, since Mexico outlawed it in 1829. Sounds reasonable, right? Well, not to the Anglo settlers or Texians, who rolled in with their culture, language, and, you guessed it, their enslaved people. Yes, you heard that correctly. Texans were known as Texians before Texas became independent. By the 1830s, Texians outnumbered Tejanos 10-1, or 30,000 to 3,000. Tensions were hotter than a jalapeno on a skillet. Mexico's 1830 law banning American immigration and cracking down on slavery? That was like pouring tequila on a campfire. And when President Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna scrapped Mexico's federal constitution in 1835, centralizing power like a wannabe emperor, the Texians roared, "Hold up, partner!" So what happens when two worlds collide on a frontier with no rules? Well, when you dig deeper, you discover why this pot started to boil over. The Texians weren't just farmers. They were a rowdy mix of adventurers, speculators, and folks dodging debts back in the States. They clung to their English language and Protestant faith, ignoring Mexican laws like a kid ignores veggies. Meanwhile, Tejanos, like Juan Seguin, were torn, loyal to Mexico, but fed up with Santa Anna's power grab. Early clashes like the Anahuac disturbances in 1832 saw Texians boot Mexican tax collectors out of town over pesky customs duties. The Battle of Velasco that year was a bloody brawl over a smuggled cannon that left Mexican troops licking their wounds. These weren't just fights. They were warning shots of a cultural chasm that'd spark a revolution. So, what instigated the Texas Revolution? On October 2, 1835, at the Battle of Gonzales, Mexican troops demanded a cannon back from Texian settlers, who waved a flag that sassed, "Come and take it." You're guessing right if you said Mexico didn't take it, because this skirmish, involving 160 volunteers against 100 Mexican dragoons, resulted in the Texas Revolution being born. And it wasn't just a scrap over a cannon, it was Texians saying, "We're done playing by your rules." Amid all these battles, on March 1, 1836, Texians declared independence at Washington on the Brazos, birthing the Republic of Texas. But Mexico viewed it as a rebel province, and Santa Anna, Mexico's self-styled Napoleon of the West, wasn't about to let his northern province slip away. He marched north with troops ready to squash the rebels like a bug under his boot. The Alamo, which was a crumbling mission in San Antonio, became the revolution's heart-wrenching symbol. For 13 days, 200 defenders, legends like Davy Crockett, Jim Bowie, and William Travis, held off thousands of Mexican soldiers. The defenders weren't just Anglo heroes, they included Tejanos like Gregorio Esparza, fighting for their homeland. Bowie, sick and bedridden, still swung his famous knife till the end. Travis's defiant letter, vowing victory or death, inspired thousands to join the cause. But on March 6, 1836, the Alamo fell, as Mexican troops overwhelmed the defenders, with nearly all of them slaughtered. Amidst all the turmoil, on March 17, 1836, a constitution was adopted, creating a federal government with David G. Burnett as interim president and Sam Houston as commander-in-chief. However, Mexico wasn't done, and 10 days later, the Goliad massacre saw 400 Texian prisoners executed. This further galvanized the Texian resistance and fueled the revolution. The decisive moment came on April 21, 1936, at San Jacinto. Sam Houston's 900-man army pulled off an 18-minute miracle, routing Santa Anna's 1,300 troops. Texian casualties were 9 dead and 34 wounded, while Mexican losses were staggering: 630 dead, 730 captured, and 280 wounded. Shouting, "Remember the Alamo" and "Remember Goliad" became global battle cries, fueling Texian fury. Now, did pirates and a sneak swamp attack save Texas? At San Jacinto, Sam Houston's genius worked a treat. He used the swampy terrain to trap Santa Anna's army, cutting off their retreat by burning Vince's Bridge. The twin sisters, 2 cannons gifted by Cincinnati, blasted Mexican lines to bits. And here's the wildest part. Texas had a secret weapon: pirates. The Texas Navy, manned by privateers like John Lafitte's old crew, raided Mexican supply ships, starving Santa Anna's army. It's almost impossible to imagine that Texian pirates saved a revolution. These strategic moves of destroying Vince's Bridge and using the twin sisters' cannons were pivotal to winning the battle. They also captured Santa Anna's himself, which led him to order Vicente Filisola to withdraw Mexican troops, effectively ending the war. The Treaties of Velasco, signed on May 14, 1836, formalized Texas's independence. The public treaty ended hostilities and required Mexican withdrawal beyond the Rio Grande, restore confiscated property, and exchanged prisoners. A secret treaty promised Santa Anna's release for securing these provisions, but Mexico later disavowed the treaties. Following independence, Texas became the Republic of Texas, lasting from 1836 to 1845. Sam Houston was elected its first president. Facing challenges like financial instability, conflicts with Native American tribes, and ongoing tensions with Mexico, which still refused recognition. The United States recognized Texas in 1837, followed by France and Britain. Now, could the Republic of Texas survive as a lone star, or was it a sitting duck? The Republic of Texas was free, but it was also broke, outnumbered, and staring down Mexico's wrath. Could this scrappy nation survive as a lone star, or was joining the U.S. its only lifeline? And why was America so keen to grab Texas, knowing it'd spark a war? From day one, Texans voted to join the U.S., but America played coy. Why? Two big reasons: slavery and war. Texas cotton fields relied on enslaved labor, and adding a slave state would tip the U.S.'s delicate free versus slave balance, enraging northern abolitionists. Plus, Mexico warned, "Annex Texas, and it's war." Presidents Jackson and Van Buren said, "We'll pass, thanks." While Texas was struggling with Comanche raiders terrorizing settlers and Mexico's army looming like a storm cloud, there was also the British who started being flirtatious with the Republic of Texas. But why the sudden interest? Was it because of Texas's first capital, Columbia, which was just a muddy village with one hotel? Or was it because its currency, the redback, was worth less than a used saddle? Well, here's where it gets geopolitical. Britain, smelling a chance to check U.S. expansion, cozied up to Texas, offering trade deals and even hinting at protection. But why? To keep Texas as a buffer against America's westward push and secure cheap cotton without U.S. tariffs. Texas flirted back, sending diplomats to London in top hats and boots. Can you imagine Texans sipping tea with British lords? No way, Jose. But it did scare the U.S. into action. You see, the Republic of Texas wasn't just a romantic underdog, it was a hot mess. Do you think back in 1830 the Mexicans, British, and Americans had any idea how successful Texas might be? Perhaps that's why it was worth all the blood, sweat, and tears. Let's quickly fast forward to the present day and understand what a formidable economic powerhouse Texas is. Ranking 8th globally with a gross state product of $2.7 trillion as of 2024, surpassing nations like Canada, Russia, and Australia. This economic might is driven by a diverse array of sectors, including energy, technology, agriculture, and manufacturing. In international trade, Texas is the top U.S. exporter, shipping $455 billion in goods in 2024. More than double California's $178 billion. The state's strategic location with access to major ports and borders enhances its export capabilities, generating significant revenue for state and local budgets. Oil and gas is a cornerstone of Texas's economy, accounting for 42% of U.S. crude oil production and 27% of marketed natural gas production in 2022. The Permian Basin and Eagle Ford Shale are pivotal and helped Texas set records in 2024 by producing 2.003 billion barrels of oil and 12.62 trillion cubic feet of natural gas. Notably, the absence of personal income tax is a significant economic driver. As one of 9 states with no income tax, Texas attracts high net worth individuals and businesses, boosting population growth and economic activity. Now we can understand why they went through all the tussle and turmoil almost 200 years ago. Anyway, let's return to the battlefield. Was the annexation a gamble, destiny, or a disaster? By 1844, the U.S. couldn't ignore Texas's strategic prize. President John Tyler, spooked by British overtures, pushed annexation. Enter James K. Polk, elected on a manifest destiny ticket. America's divine right to stretch sea to shining sea. In March 1845, Congress passed a joint resolution, not a treaty, to annex Texas. Texans voted 7,664 to 430 to join, and on December 29, 1845, Texas became the 28th state. No purchase here, folks. Texas chose to join, but the move lit a fuse. Mexico claimed the border was the Nueces River. The U.S. said Rio Grande. Polk sent General Zachary Taylor into the disputed zone, practically daring Mexico to shoot. They did, and in May 1846, the Mexican-American War kicked off. So, did slavery and a sneaky border trick also spark the war? Let's not sugarcoat it. Slavery was the annexation's dark heart. Texas's 5,000 enslaved people in 1836 grew to 30,000 by 1845, fueling its cotton boom. Northern senators like John Quincy Adams raged that annexation was a slave power plot to spread bondage westward. The Senate's 1844 treaty rejection, 35-16, proved how toxic the issue was. Polk's border gambit was straight-up Machiavellian. By sending 4,000 troops to the Rio Grande in July 1845, He parked them in what Mexico saw as its territory. When Mexican cavalry attacked in April 1846, Polk cried, "American blood on American soil," even though the soil was debatable. Congress declared war, but critics called it a land grab. Sneaky, sure. Effective, you bet. The Mexican-American War wasn't just about Texas. It was America flexing its imperial muscles. U.S. forces, led by generals like Winfield Scott, steamrolled south, capturing Mexico City in 1847. The Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, signed February 2, 1848, ended the war. Mexico ceded 525,000 square miles, not just Texas, but California, Arizona, New Mexico, and more for $15 million. That's the purchase people talk about, but Texas was already American. This was for the Southwest, and at 3 cents an acre, it was cheaper than a shot of whiskey. But the cost was steep: 13,000 American and 20,000 Mexican deaths. Mexico humiliated, and the U.S. wrestling with slavery spread, planting seeds for the Civil War. So was the Mexican-American War a triumph or a tragedy? Well, it certainly was no picnic. U.S. troops faced guerrilla attacks and disease, with malaria killing more than the bullets. Mexican civilians suffered looting and massacres, like at Agua Nueva, where Arkansas volunteers went rogue. Yet battles like Buena Vista, where General Zachary Taylor's 5,000 men held off Santa Anna's 15,000, cemented U.S. dominance. The war's $100 million cost, $3 billion today, nearly bankrupted the U.S., but the land grab made it worth every penny. Back home in America, the Wilmot Proviso of 1846 tried to ban slavery in the new territories, but got shot down by Southern senators. It was a preview for the Civil War's North-South rift. So, was Texas actually bought? Nope. It was won through rebellion, annexation, and war. But the story doesn't end in 1848. The Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo set Texas's border at the Rio Grande, and it's still a flashpoint. We have to ask ourselves, is Texas's border still a battleground? Fast forward to 2025, and the Texan border is hotter than a habanero. In January 2024, the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, seized Shelby Park in Eagle Pass, installing razor wire and floating buoys in the Rio Grande. And the National Guard blocked the federal border patrol, sparking a showdown over immigration. The Supreme Court ruled against Texas, but Abbott doubled down and sued the feds over border policies, citing state sovereignty. Over 2.5 million migrant encounters were logged in 2023, more than Texas's entire 1836 population. On the flip side, Texas's Anglo, Tejano, and Mexican roots weave a rich cultural tapestry. Tejanos like Jose Antonio Navarro, a signer of Texas's 1836 Declaration, laid roots that endured and remain in festivals, food, and family. Did you know 40% of Texans today are Hispanic, shaping everything from politics to barbecue? From San Antonio's fiesta to El Paso's border markets, Texas thrives on its blended heritage. Texas isn't just a border, it's a bridge. As we begin to finish off this epic tale, let's fast forward to present-day Texas and how much the Mexicans lost out economically and how much the Americans gained. Business is robust, with Texas hosting 55 Fortune 500 companies in 2025, more than any other state. Giants like ExxonMobil, AT&T, and Tesla create high-paying jobs, drive innovation, and enhance Texas's reputation as a business hub by attracting further investment and talent. Texas added 215,500 jobs from April 2024 to April 2025, outpacing national growth by 0.2 percentage points across a diverse amount of industries. Texas leads the way with renewable energy, generating 27% of U.S. wind energy in March 2025, with over 40,000 megawatts installed capacity. Transportation infrastructure is vast, with over 313,200 miles of public roads, the largest in the U.S. The tech industry is surging, contributing $470 billion to GDP in 2022. Agriculture remains a leader, with Texas topping cattle, cotton, and hay production, with agricultural exports valued at $5.8 billion in 2020. So was war, annexation, revolution, and a measly $15 million worth it in the 1830s? We'll let you decide that one. Texas has a larger-than-life legacy. It didn't just join America, it helped define it. Its oil boom made it an energy giant. Its ranches feed millions. Its cities, like Houston and Austin, pulse with innovation and music. And that independent streak? Texans still joke about seceding. But now let's not tempt fate. Texas kept its public lands after annexation, unlike other states, giving it control over billions in oil revenue. Also keeping places like Bracken Cave, home to 20 million bats, the world's largest colony. Texas's story is filled with grit, rebellion, and it's full of dreams bigger than the state itself. It wasn't bought, it was forged in fire, shaping America as a land of fighters and visionaries. So, did Texas invent the future and pull off history's weirdest rebellion? The 1901 Spindletop oil strike birthed the modern petroleum industry, making millionaires overnight. Texas Instruments, born in Dallas, gave us the first pocket calculator in 1972, quite the invention for any fellow maths geeks out there. Who had any idea back then that Texas's GDP would rank it as the world's 8th largest economy? And let's not forget the Fredonian Rebellion of 1826. A tiny group of settlers declared a Republic of Fredonia near Nacogdoches, complete with a flag and a treaty with local Cherokees. Mexico crushed it in weeks, but it was like Texas saying, "We're trouble, and we're just getting started." The purchase of Texas seems more like a saga of rebellion, war, and destiny. But it's proof that history's messier than a textbook and way more thrilling. Texas wasn't just annexed. It literally reshaped America, Mexico, and the world, leaving a legacy of courage, conflict, and culture that burns bright today. So, what's the takeaway? Sometimes a gamble, like backing a ragtag republic, pays off in ways no one could imagine. Could Texas go solo again, or is it America's ultimate frontier? If this deep dive into Texas's wild history lit your fire, please drop your thoughts in the comments and consider subscribing and turn on notifications. It really does make a difference and means the world to us. Thanks again, stay curious, and we'll see you next time on Earth Mapped Out.